So we've gotten through the first 3 videos in our little sprint car setup video series, and it is time for our 4th and final video. What do you do to the car when the track slicks off? Well, we're going to be covering that next. What's up, everybody? Thomas Brandon here. Thank you very much as always for joining me. And like I said, we're going to be diving into the adjustments for a slick track. Now, this is where a lot of people really get hung up, is what do I do to the car when the track slicks off? When it comes to the wing sprint cars, when it slicks off, a lot can be done with just the wing. It really can. Now, there are other things that you need to account for, just because the dynamics of the car changes so much when you add that much fuel. So for example, if you look at a car, when you go from, like, let's say 5 or 6 gallons in the heat race, and then you put in 16 gallons, right? That's an additional 10 gallons of fuel. On average, fuel's going to be somewhere around 6 pounds a gallon. So that's another 60 pounds that you're adding to the rear of the car. That's going to lower the rear ride height, which can make the car bottom out now until it burns off a certain level of fuel. If you increase the wing angle to accommodate for a slick track, right, to get more grip, you're now pushing that rear end down even more because it's got more rear downforce, right? So you could go into the corner and then turn it in, and now the left rear rail drags on the ground and the car just snaps loose and boom, you're off the track, right? So you got to accommodate for some of that stuff, but you can do a whole lot with just a couple of very simple adjustments. Now, we're going to be looking at the mechanical side of things, bar adjustments, wheel spacing, stagger, shocks, that type of thing. But then also we're going to dive into some of the aero stuff as well, because it's really, really important. And with these cars, it makes a huge difference, because that's why they've got the wings on them. That's why they are so fast. It's because that downforce allows these things to fly around the track. There's a lot you can do with these cars with just a couple of small adjustments, as you've probably no doubt realized so far through this entire video series, because that's what we've been covering. So let's head over to the track and let's take a look. All right, so we are at Lucas Oil. Wheatland is the other name that it has for it. And if we look here at the iRacing setup, okay, and this is their feature setup, and I've got the track set to 80%. The reason why I will pick 80% a lot of times for stuff like this is twofold. Number one, it's usually a good slicked off track, meaning that the middle is slicked off. You have a very small groove on the bottom and a very narrow groove up top. It allows me some track to still run in. There's still some room for me to run it in and have it change some. When you pick like 100% track, what I've noticed, especially with the pre-gen, is a lot of times it can seem kind of weird. Like, I've done some 100% tracks before that are incredible. Like, it's slicked off from bottom to top, and it's razor thin at the top and the bottom. And then I've also done some tracks before where you do 100% and it's like this narrow groove right through the middle that is, it looks like black ice, and then the rest of the track is tacky. The 100% stuff, there are instances where it seems good and then it seems off. 80% seems to be a little bit better and more consistent in my experiences. So that's why I've got that. Okay. But if we look here at the setup, you can see that iRacing's race setup, their feature setup, all right, 13 inches of stagger, the wheel offset, this is something that they've got in pretty much all their setups, 26 degrees on the top wing. They've got the wing position at -4, and they've got basically the same shocks and turns that they have in their qualifying setup with more fuel. If we look at the qualifying setup for here, it's less fuel and the wing is all the way forward, same stagger, everything is the same. This isn't like laziness on iRacing's part. This is iRacing pretty much illustrating that, look, and we talked about this in the first videos. If you can get this thing, good off the truck, you're not going to have to change a whole lot. Now, I wouldn't want to run the exact same thing because the track has changed. And even if you consider the fact that, if we just look here, when the track is tacky, where you're running through the middle of the track, right? Even if you're running the marbles are much lower. Well, that radius is much tighter than when it's way up here. So just that alone, I'm going to want to decrease the stagger because I'm going to be making a much wider arc on the corner, right? That's one reason why we want to decrease stagger. It's not, we don't decrease the stagger because it's like, oh, we got to be able to handle the slick. Well, no, we decrease the stagger because we're going to be driving above the slick, and that arc is much wider if we're running the top. Now, on the bottom, right, we're still going to want to decrease some stagger because the track is slick, so we don't want it to just over rotate. But if you're going to make a car that is much more bottom dominant, you might not want to decrease stagger as much. Okay, so those are some things to think about. All right, but I'm kind of jumping ahead here. So first of all, let's take this setup, let's make the couple of changes that we made in the beginning. All right, we're going to take our Wheatland setup. I am going to get rid of this steering offset, and I'm going to actually let's leave everything else the same. Let's just go out here and let's just run a couple of laps, and let's just see how, I haven't driven this setup yet. Let's just see how the car feels. Okay. Oh, we definitely got way too short of a gear. The car actually feels like it's kind of bottoming out up on the top there, like it, because it's a little bit bumpy, and then it, yeah, see, right there, that's the car bottoming out. Try it on the bottom here. Okay, so it's not great. It's not horrible, but it's not great. Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, let's take an inch and a half of stagger out. Okay. The nose still feels kind of pinned to me, so I'm gonna actually reduce the nose wing to 24. The wing position, we'll leave that for right now with the top wing angle. We're gonna come back to that here in just a little bit, and we got to take some gear out of this. It's way too short of a gear, so let's go to a. What I say before, like 5 or 6? Well, let's go to a 570 even seems like it's going to be too short, but let's just try that right now. And then the other thing that I want to do is I'm going to increase this packer, and I'm going to increase it 3 clicks, okay? Just to get that left side up a little bit more, because I think the car's bottoming out. I think that's one of the reasons why it's snapping on that cushion. Okay, so let's just try this and see. So it's definitely not snapping like it was before, so that's good. The gear is definitely better. Okay, so that feels much better. I can drive it in there better. The car's still a little flat. I shouldn't say still. It's a little flat now with that packer. But it's definitely better than it was. But that's definitely better, okay? So, we can work with this, all right? So, let's just say that this was our setup, okay? Let's take some of that out. So this is our setup that we've had for the heat race, all right? Like we did with the Volusia when we were at Volusia. All right, so here's our setup that we did our qualifying and our heat race with, and now we're going to do our feature with it, okay? So first of all, we would take that stagger out, which we've already done. All right, we've taken stagger out. Typically, I'm going to take out between 1 to 2 inches of stagger for the feature. That's going to depend on the track size, and track state. Okay. So for example, we ran a race, well, actually last night, uh, and it was at Fairbury. I qualified with 14 inches of stagger. When I ran the feature, I had 12.5 inches of stagger. All right. Place like Lucas Oil, I might qualify with 13.5 or 14.5 inches of stagger because this track has really tight corners for how long the straights are. Come feature time, I'm probably going to be somewhere around 12 to 11. Okay, just because depending on how slick the track is and where I'm running. All right, so like I said, it's usually 1 to 2 inches from where we, qualify heat race at, that type of thing. Okay. Now, the other things that we're going to adjust here, we're going to do this kind of one at a time here so I don't overwhelm you. All right. So first things first is as the track slicks off, one of the things that I will do is I will take rebound out of the left rear shock. Usually I will go either 1 to 2 clicks. All right. And I will also take rebound out of the front shocks. Now, a lot of times I'm usually going just a half a click on the front. So if I were to qualify with this, with a 5.4 and a 4.5, in the heat race, I would be something like this. And then in the feature, I might be something like this. Now, there are times I will do more, but that's kind of what I'll do is I'll take some rebound out. The rebound, like we talked about in video 3, is very important. Maintaining the profile of the car is important. Even on a track that's slick, remember, we still want the car to wing over and keep that profile so we can drive it through the corner nice and straight. All right, that still matters. Okay, but since we're on and off the throttle more, we're not just basically holding it wide open. When we lift, we need it to wing over, right? We need that car to set, and then when we give it throttle, we want a little bit more weight transfer to the rear. That's the mechanical aspect of it that we're looking for. Left rear rebound, same thing. When we come off the corner, if we keep that left side tied down, we could actually unload the left rear. With that, taking some of that rebound out, it allows that left rear to extend some, and it pushes that tire into the ground. Gives us that drive off the corner. Those are some simple adjustments that I'll make as the track slicks off with the shocks. All right, so let's just leave this like this because that's pretty good. The right rear is something that I will also adjust some, and it really depends on the track and what the car is doing. This is usually a fine-tune adjustment that I make after I've made other adjustments. That's kind of the first thing that I'll do there is as we're going through, I'll be changing the rebound on those shocks. I don't mess with the bump too much. I do a little bit, but not very much. Normally, if I get the bump feeling good, then I'll leave it. There are certain instances where I will slightly increase the bump on the front shocks, but it depends on the track. One of the reasons for that is when I let off the throttle, I don't want the car to slam. I don't want the front end to slam. I want it to set nice and smooth. Increasing the bump will counter that, right? See, when we're on throttle the whole time, the car's basically set the whole time. Even if we're lifting some, we're rolling off very little, so the car's not moving much. But when we get to the slick and we're kind of on and off throttle, that's where we can get the car to start rocking, and this bump up front will help with that. The bump rubber, so this is something that I've flipped on from when I did the bump rubber video a long time ago, and I've talked about this in the first 3 videos of this. I used to start off softer, and then I would stiffen it as the track slicked off. I don't do that no more. I actually start off with it stiffer when it's tacky because I'm just loading it and we've got the leverage to keep it loaded, and then I'm softening this as the track slicks off more and more. The reason for that is if you are slowing down and this is too stiff, I've talked about before, you get that pogo effect where the car's just bouncing off the left rear and it's unloading it. So right now it feels pretty good. We'll leave it at 500 because 500 it's pretty soft. I don't really want to go much softer than that right now, until we have a reason to. Now the Packer shim, I will increase that some as the track slicks off, but even then it's usually going to be a click or two. It's not a ton. We're just controlling the attitude of the car with the Packer shim. All right, and then the wheel spacing. This is pretty straightforward. It's kind of like stagger. As the event or race goes on, as the track slicks off, all right, we decrease stagger. We're going to move the right rear in and move the left rear out. It's really straightforward, okay? It's going to really depend on where you start with it at. At a track like Fairbury, for example, which is really tight and really fast, I might start with the right rear, for qualifying. It might be at 1850 and the left rear is at 1350. And then by the time I get to the feature, it might be 1750 and 14. At a track like Lucas Oil, though, I might start at 1775 and 1375 in qualifying. And then in the feature, I might be 1425 and 17 and a quarter. It just depends. So right now, iRacing had it at, 1750 and 14. So we'll leave it there for now. Lastly, we've got our fuel here, which we need to obviously add. One of the things that I will do to help, because like I said before, I don't want to just put a bunch of Packer shim into this to keep it from bottoming out. So as we add fuel, you can see here the bottom just drops and drops and drops and drops. Okay. Well, if we look at this, what did we have with 6 gallons? We had 1233. Let's just call that 14. All right. And now we're at 12 and 13.7. So we could put a turn in both of these, and that's pretty much right where we were. Now, that does not mean that you always just want to add a turn to both rears. But in terms of resetting ride height, I just wanted to show you that's kind of where we would want to be. Now, for me, because this car does not have the attitude that I want it to have, I'm going to end up adjusting those rear stops a little bit differently. But right now, just to illustrate this point, we're going to leave it straight like that. Let's do this. Let's put this top wing to 27. I want to have a little bit more angle. I like to have more wing angle and the wing forward. I would rather run it at 27 degrees and my wing position at 0, opposed to running it at 24 and my wing position starting off at 5. That's just me personally. You could be completely different. You might be, I know drivers who they run in the feature, they run the exact same wing angle they run in qualifying. They just move it back. All right, so that could be you. It doesn't matter. The thing is that you're going to need downforce come feature time. So whether you increase the angle or move it back is entirely up to you. Either one of them provide their own changes that you need to make in terms of the balance of the car. For right now, let's just do this. Let's go out on track here. All right, so we got telemetry on. Let's just do a couple laps here. We're not going to be pushing it to the max here. We just want to get a feel for the car. Definitely a bumpy track, which is actually good for practicing. Now see, this car, it's a little too flat for me. See, right now what's happening here, when I'm coming into the corner here, I want to be able to drag the brake, and I want the car to not roll up. I want it to suck down. And right now when I'm just touching the brake, it's rolling up. See that? But it's rolling up just slightly for me. Now, other than that, the car feels pretty good. I actually wouldn't be opposed to racing this car. It's not perfect, but it feels pretty good. If we look at this, first of all, the first thing I'm going to check is our ride heights. I just want to make sure that we're not dragging that left rear rail on the ground. You can see here where we're getting really low, negative 0.79, and that's the car is... That's where we're coming off the corner there, and that's where this is 1 and 2. That's where we're actually up on the hump. Okay, so I can live with that because that's not me being on the track. That's me being up over the edge. Okay, if we look here, later on, you can see that we're not doing that. Our lowest point is not doing that. It's only when we're getting into those bumps. Same thing, hitting those bumps on that hump. Now, when the track is bumpy like that, you don't want it to be bottoming out, but it's not to where it's snapping the car loose, which is the main thing, okay? This is right about the edge. So we might want to actually lift that up a little bit more, but we'll do that with our torsion bar stop. Suspension-wise, loads and everything look good. Now, here's something that's really interesting. You see here, see where this load is actually 0 on the bump rubber? That's when we were running the bottom. The car is not winging. Remember I talked about the car rolling flat? That's because what's happening is we're going into that corner and I'm touching the brake to suck it down and it's rolling over. That rolling over is a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually, I don't want to lower the left rear anymore. I'm going to actually add a turn to the right rear. And on top of that, I'm going to take a half a turn out of the left front. So what that's going to allow the car to do is, it's not just, because when you lower the left front, okay, keep in mind that's also lowering the left rear in a sense too when the car is dynamically winging over. That'll help that thing wing over more and be more at an angle and drive through the corner as opposed to rolling up and kind of sliding through the corner. All right. The other thing that we can do is, and you'll see this a lot, and people say, and I do it sometimes too, it just depends. When it comes to the torsion bar stops on the front, the higher that you raise the front, the tighter the car is going to be. All right. It doesn't just put more weight on the rear, it tightens the car up. One thing that I see a lot of people doing on slick tracks is they'll raise the front up a lot. Like they'll have 2 to 3 turns in it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that, but then they'll complain that the car's too tight. When the track is slicked off, forward drive matters. It absolutely does. But you still got to be able to turn the damn car, right? If you have to break it loose to get the thing to turn, it doesn't matter how much rear grip you have. Once you break these things loose, you've lost all your drive. You have to literally get off the throttle so much to regain that traction. You're losing way too much time. So don't think that, it's all about just being able to hit the gas and go. Remember, you got to be able to get through those corners. All right. So raising this up will put some more weight on the rear and it will tighten the car up some, but there's a point where it's too tight. Let's take a turn out there and actually let's add a half a turn to the right front just to put some more tilt in the car. Let's go try this. Now the car should have more right rear drive with that. See how much more tilted the car is through the corner and how I can control it better with the throttle? Way better through the corner now. Way better. That feels 100 times better. And think about, what did we change there? We added a turn to the right rear, took a half a turn out of the left front, and put a half a turn in the right front. That was it. That was all we did. Don't get caught up in the thought process of, hey, we gotta jack up the front end, slam the rear end. Like we don't have to do that no more. With these cars in the slick, the main thing, have the front tires be able to control the car enough to where you can drive it. And like I said before, we can make these things so tight in the slick. I see this happen all the time where now you're having to break it loose just to get the damn thing to turn. And we don't want to do that. All right. And it's a few simple adjustments here. Now, what else can we do in terms of adjustments? Well, what we've covered is basically everything. All right. It's just a matter of how far do we want to go with it. So as the track slicks off more and more, there are other things that we can do. Okay, if we look at this in terms of each corner of the car, we could stiffen up this left front more. Okay, and what that's going to do is that's going to keep the left front from dropping as much. That'll tighten up the car some. All right, it's not going to wing over as easy because that left front's stiffer. You can also soften the rear bars. It's just like putting softer springs in a car, right? Now you've got it softer, gives you more travel, can give you better drive off the corners, all right? Softer bars are something that you can absolutely do. One thing to note between stiff and soft bars, though, is that softer bars are going to give you a little bit more mechanical grip. The stiffer bars keep the car a little bit more stable, which allows the aero grip to really the wing to really help you a whole lot more. One thing that a lot of people also don't consider when it comes to like the stiff versus soft bar, situation is when you make the bars too soft. When we had a car that was not bottoming out, now we soften up the bars and now that thing's slamming into the ground because it has more travel and it's too soft to hold the rear end up. Okay, so like everything we've covered, it's a balance. It's absolutely a balance. We want to make sure that the car's got good mechanical grip, but also takes advantage of the aero aspect of these cars because that is so important. All right, everybody, so that is going to do it for our Wing Sprint car setup video series. I hope this stuff helps you. I really do. I always tell people when it comes to making adjustments and doing setups and things like that, ultimately, you got to get out there and you got to play around with it. You got to try it. You can't be afraid to make an adjustment and it not work. I've been doing this for years. I did it for years in real life, and I've been doing it on the sim now for years. And I still go out and test stuff and try different things, right? Like that's the only way you could figure this stuff out. Go out and find guides and read stuff on the internet and get setups from other people. That's all great and fine and dandy, but at the end of the day, the only way that you are going to know exactly what these adjustments are going to do for your driving style is to go out and do them. So go out, get a base setup right from wherever, go to a tacky track, make that thing comfortable, make it feel good, and then get a track and have it slicked off and then adjust it for that slick track and see if you can't dial that thing in. The more you do it, the more you'll know, hey, this is what I need to do to stay ahead of the track. Because at the end of the day, that's really what you're doing. Like I said before, once you have the base dialed in, for wherever the starting point is, making your adjustments for a slick track, you're just doing it to stay ahead of the track. That's what you're doing. Go out, make adjustments, and at the end of the day, like I said, it's fairly simple, right? In terms of staying ahead of the track, you're gonna decrease the stagger, move the right rear end, move the left rear out, add some wing angle, or move the wing back, or a combination of both, whatever works for you, and then maybe put a little bit taller gear in, right? If you're using the iRacing setup, you're gonna put a taller gear in. And there you go, right? Add the fuel, adjust those ride heights so it's not bottoming out, and you've got yourself a setup for a slick track, and you're ready to go. So that's going to do it. Thank you very much, as always, for joining me. If this video series helped you or if you liked it, please do me a favor, hit the like button. Make sure to share, subscribe, get this out to people. I know that even there's still a ton of people out there that need help with these setups and adjustments. So please get it out there. Now, I do have a lot more stuff like this coming. In fact, I'm going to be doing a video compilation with somebody on the asphalt side. And we're going to be diving into fixed series. And I'm going to be doing a little video series on why you should be running both open and fixed. And then I'm going to be showing simple adjustments on the open setup side for the NASCAR stuff. So if you like asphalt stuff, make sure that you're subscribed so you don't miss that. Also, I don't do this nearly enough, and I need to. I want to give a big shout out to all the members of the Winner Circle here on the YouTube channel, and then all of you who are a part of the SSR community, specifically the Insider program. What you guys do is huge in supporting myself and the community. It allows me to do this stuff and, you know, help as many people as possible and put on special events and league races and all the stuff that we do. It's incredible. It really is. And so I want to thank you guys from literally the bottom of my heart. I know that it's so corny and cheesy to say, but it's incredible to me that you guys support, you know, not just myself, but the community as a whole, because it's a labor of love, and it allows me to spend the time that I spend on this stuff and, you know, give back as much as I possibly can. And it's awesome. It's an awesome thing to do. So thank you very much for that. I greatly appreciate it, and I don't say it enough, you know, but it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you. But that'll do it. Thank you very much as always for joining me. Until next time, I want to wish you good luck, good racing. Take care.